All right. Good evening, everyone, and a warm welcome to Sai English Talks webinar series, episode 8. Sai English Talks is a platform, as you know, where psychology meets communication, offering opportunities to learn, share, and grow through insightful discussions that enrich both our personal and professional lives. Today, it is my pleasure to introduce our presenter, Ms. Irene Amal Jose. Irene is a second-year BSc Psychology student at Providence Women's College, Calicut. She is also a spoken English and communication skills trainer, a UBA cell trainer, and active volunteer with IPM Palliative Care, Calicut. And she's also an NCC Army Wing Cadet and an experienced event host and master of ceremonies. Alongside her academic journey, Irene actively contributes to environmental sustainability, community service, and patient support, reflecting her commitment to making a positive impact on society. This evening, she'll be speaking to us on the topic emotional hijacking. All of us have experienced moments when emotions seem to take over our thinking and influence our actions. Through today's session, we hope to gain a better understanding of why this happens and learn practical ways to respond with greater awareness and emotional balance. Before we begin, Irene, many of us may not be familiar with the Unnat Bharat Abhiyan or UBA cell and the important work you do as a UBA cell trainer. We would love to hear a brief introduction about this initiative and your role in it before you take us into today's topic. So now, without further ado, I invite Ms. Irene Amal Jose to enlighten us on today's topic, emotional hijacking. Over to you, Irene.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm Irene. Hello, everyone. Good evening. I hope all of you are doing well. So, if you're wondering what UBASL is, it's a government initiative where college students and the students go to villages to promote sustainable development activities. So it's called Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, and we promote our works improve rural communities. And right now, we're doing a project with the CSR fund of Malabar Group, where we teach families to promote eco-friendly practices like waste segregation, composting, and water conservation, creating sustainable homes and communities with the CSR support of the Malabar Group. So that's basically what we do. So finally, now going on to today's session, as you all know, it's emotional hijacking. So this, it's called, Can Emotions Empower You or Overpower You? I'm sure all of you have at least once, multiple times, gone through it. So basically, are you driving your emotions or are they driving you is the question you have to ask yourself. So before we begin, I'd like you all to think of a few questions in your mind. So have you ever said something in anger and later wished you hadn't? Have you ever made a decision while feeling scared or upset only to regret it later? Have you ever avoided an important opportunity because you didn't feel like you were ready yet or you were confident enough? Have you stopped talking to someone you cared about because you felt like they were misunderstanding you? I think most of us would answer yes to at least one of these questions. So these questions are more common than we think. They happen to students, professionals, teachers, and even therapists, none of us are completely free from strong emotions. So today we're going to understand why these reactions happen, what is happening inside our brain, and most importantly, how we can respond instead of simply reacting. So, but this webinar is not about becoming completely emotionless. It's about while emotions are a very important and beautiful part of a human brain, it helps us build relationships, protect us, and shows empathy and connect with others. The problem is not having emotions. The problem begins with emotions becoming so intense that they make our decisions for us. This is what the topic today is about. Before I explain the psychology behind emotional hijacking, I'd like to share my small personal experience. For a long time, whenever I felt deeply hurt, embarrassed, or worried about my future goals or anything, I had a habit of shutting down emotionally. I didn't argue with people, get angry with people, or like I would instead like stop replying to messages, avoid conversation, and isolate myself from my family and friends and everyone I actually cared about, even if they had nothing to do with any of it. So at that time, I believed I was protecting myself. But later, I realized I wasn't protecting myself. I was avoiding my emotions. Unfortunately, that came with a cost. I lost touch with people I cared about. I missed opportunities that could have helped my career. And I delayed my goals simply because I was waiting to feel ready. And learning psychology helped me understand that it wasn't simply my personality, it was a pattern of responding to difficult emotions. So instead of reacting, we're supposed to respond. By taking a step back, we can do that. So once I understood that pattern, I realized that change was actually possible. So today, I still experience fear, and I still experience disappointment and everything in between. But the difference is now I recognize my emotions earlier, and that gives me the opportunity to make better decisions. So that's one of the biggest lessons psychology taught me. So awareness before change is our main goal. And now that we have introduced today's topic, let us begin what emotional hijacking actually means. The term emotional hijacking, also known as amygdala hijacking, which is a part of the brain, was popularized by psychologist Daniel Goleman in his book Emotional Intelligence. He used the term to describe emotions where our emotions become so intense that they temporarily affect our ability to think clearly, make better decisions, and respond calmly. So, in simple words, emotional hijacking happens when our emotional brain reacts faster than our thinking brain. Okay, I hope I'm visible.
Yes, you're visible and you're audible.
So imagine you're driving to work and suddenly another vehicle cuts in front of you. So within a second, your heart starts beating faster. Your muscles become tense. You feel maybe angry or somewhat like tensed. I was stressed out even. So and some people may even honk, and others may comment, and some people start panicking. All of this happens because you've had enough time to calmly think about the situation. This is because your brain is designed to react quickly whenever it becomes believes that it is a possible threat. Now, this quick reaction is actually a very useful survival mechanism. If there is a real danger, such as a speeding vehicle or a fire, reacting quickly can save our lives. However, a brain always reacts only to physical danger. Doesn't like actually, our brain doesn't only react to physical danger, but it also reacts to emotional situations. That is exactly why our we react strongly to rejection, and most people are rejection sensitive. We strongly react to criticism and other things instead of responding, even if it doesn't poses a threat to our physical body. Although, so that is when emotional hijacking occurs. It is important to understand that emotional hijacking is not a mental illness. It happens to everyone and it is not a disorder. It is a natural and a normal human response every one of us experiences at different points of life. The difference is that many people may recognize it quickly and recover sooner, while others may remain emotionally overwhelmed for a longer period. That is when understanding psychology becomes very helpful, but it is much broader than that. For example, someone experiencing emotional hijacking may become angry and shout, cry uncontrollably, and suddenly stop talking and cut off ties with everyone. Withdraw from family and friends, panic during an interview, freeze during an examination, even after preparing well. So these are different reactions, but they have one common feature. I'd like to connect this with my own experience where whenever I feel hurt, embarrassed, or anxious, I rarely react with anger. As I mentioned earlier, I usually avoid conversations and I used to isolate myself a lot. But that was before I understood and how my emotions and how I can tame my emotions. So recognizing the patterns is very essential in trying to control and protecting ourselves from emotional pain. Now, before we move forward, I'd like to mention another important scientist whose work helped us understand this topic. Neuroscientist Joseph Ledoux spent many years studying how the brain responds to danger. His research showed that our brain has a very fast pathway that helps us detect possible threats and react quickly. This system helped us uh, this system helped us human beings survive for thousands of years. Today, neuroscientists understand that emotions involve several different brain regions working together. One is the amygdala, the second is the prefrontal cortex, and the hippocampus, and other, etc. So the important message here is that our emotions are not the problem. They exist to protect us, guide us, and help us understand and respond to the world around us. The challenge is learning how to respond wisely instead of reacting automatically. So, so now that we understand what emotional hijacking is, let's take a closer look at what is happening inside our brain. So my goal is to simply help you understand why our brain reacts before we are able to think. Okay, so our brain is one of the most beautiful but complex organs in our body. So it's only 1.3 to 1.4 kilograms, and but it contains 86 billion neurons or nerve cells that constantly communicate with each other. Every thought, every memory, every emotion, and every decision begins with this, within this remarkable organ. So, although the brain has many different parts, we'll focus on the four that help us understand emotion hijacking. So these are amygdala, the prefrontal cortex, the hippocampus, the hypothalamus, and the body's stress response system, which I mentioned earlier. So let's go a little bit more deep into it. Okay. So the amygdala is also known as the brain's alarm system. So the amygdala is a small almond-shaped structure located deep inside the brain, where we actually have each one on each side of the brain. And many people refer to it as the fear center. However, modern neuroscientists tell us that the role is much broader than fear alone. The amygdala constantly monitors our surroundings for anything that might be emotionally important. It asks questions like, is it safe? Should I pay attention? Could this be a threat? Think of it like the smoke detector in your home. A smoke detector doesn't know whether the smoke is coming from a dangerous fire or a toaster that's been burning for too long. So its job is to simply detect something unusual and raise an alarm. In the same way, the amygdala quickly alerts the rest of the brain when something appears emotionally significant. Most of the time, this protects us, but sometimes it reacts before all the information is available. That is when we may react strongly to criticism, rejection, embarrassment, or even failure, even though these situations are not physically dangerous. So the next part of the brain is the thinking part of the brain. That is the prefrontal cortex. This area is located just behind our forehead. So it is responsible for many of our ability to make thoughtful decisions, and like it helps us think logically, critically think and analyze situations, plan ahead, solve problems, control consequences, make balanced decisions, and vagera, vagera. If the amygdala is the brain's alarm system, the prefrontal cortex is the brain's decision maker. It so imagine someone criticizes you. So the amygdala may immediately react by saying, "This feels threatening." Your prefrontal cortex asks a different question. Let's just slow down for a moment. Is this criticism helpful? Is this constructive criticism that will actually help me improve my previous way of doing things? Will it help me make better decisions? And what is the best way to respond? That is what the prefrontal cortex helps us do. So, healthy regulation, emotional regulation depends on these systems working together. And the next part of the brain, which also helps, is the hippocampus. It learns from experiences. So, it helps us organize and retrieve memory. So, that could be why trauma that can be discovered later in our life usually stems from a previous bad experience, usually that happened in our childhood. So imagine a child who was once bitten by a dog. Years later, the child sees another dog. The hippocampus recognizes a similar memory. The amygdala becomes an alert. The child may immediately feel fear. Sometimes, sometimes this response could be protective, but sometimes our past experiences make present situations feel more dangerous than they actually are. This is one reason why two people can experience the same event but react very differently. Then comes the next part of the brain, the body's response, stress response. So, emotional hijacking does not only affect our way of responding or reacting or our brain alone. It affects our whole body. When the brain believes we may be in danger, another structure called the hypothalamus becomes active. The hypothalamus communicates with the rest of the body through what scientists call the HPA axis. You don't need to remember that name. Just remember what it does, okay? So it prepares your body to respond. As part of this process, hormones such as adrenaline and cortisol are released. These hormones prepare us for action. Uh, our heart beats faster, our breathing becomes quicker, and our muscles become tense, our attention becomes focused on a possible threat. These reactions are extremely useful if we need to escape real danger. But imagine experience the same physical reaction because of an examination, a difficult conversation, or a presentation at work. And that body responds in a similar way because it believes something important is happening. So, why do we sometimes regret a reaction? It is because we usually react differently, right? Have any of you noticed that when you're very angry, you sometimes say things you don't really mean, and sometimes you say it and then you'll probably mostly always regret it. Or during an examinations, your mind suddenly goes blank, even though you have studied well, you're prepared, you know all the answers, and all the questions feel familiar to you, but you suddenly go blank during that time. This happens because strong emotional arousal can make careful thinking, memory, and decision making more difficult for a short period. That doesn't make us incapable of thinking. Rather, thinking clearly becomes more challenging until emotional intensity begins to settle. So, rather, there's a response system that each person has. So, some people might have a flight or freeze or a flight or a freeze or a fawn type of response. Our brain has several common ways of responding when in danger, and each person, it varies from person to person. The first one I'll be explaining is flight, where this might involve a much more harsher way, where it involves arguing, shouting, becoming defensive, and trying to take control of the situation. So, and the second is flight. Instead of confronting the situation, we avoid it. So that is flight. As I mentioned earlier, this is what I used to do. And we leave, we withdraw, we postpone difficult conversation. So whenever I felt emotionally overwhelmed, my instinct was to distance myself from people and situations. The third response is freeze. Uh, this is where people feel unable to think or act. Sometimes students often describe this during examinations where they cannot control or remember information very well, as I mentioned earlier. So this comes under the freeze response. So the next type of response is fawn, where instead of fighting or leaving, some people try to reduce conflict by constantly pleasing others. This can be seen in people who are people pleasers or that kind of personality types. So they struggle to say no, they apologize even when they have done nothing wrong. These are not signs of weakness, though. These are survival responses that help humans survive throughout evolution. So the challenge is recognizing when these automatic responses are no longer helpful in our everyday lives. So the most important information from the section is that our brain is designed to protect us. It reacts quickly because survival has always been its first priority. So the problem is not that our brain reacts. The problem is that emotional situations can sometimes activate the same survival systems that may be meant for physical danger. So understanding this gives us something very important. It reminds us that emotional hijacking is not about being weak. It is about understanding how the brain works and learning how to work with it rather than against it. So now that we understand what is happening inside our brain, our next question is becoming even. Our next question is something even more interesting. That is, why do two people react to the same situation differently? And to answer that, we need to understand how our thoughts, beliefs, and past experiences shapes our emotional responses. So, so for example, if two students receive the same exam score, one student says, I didn't do well as I hoped, but I'll prepare better next time. The other student thinks, I'm a complete failure. I never succeed. The exam result is the same for both of them, but why are their emotional response so different? The answer lies in how each person interprets the situation. One of the psychologists who helped us understand this was Dr. Richard Lazarus. He developed a theory known as cognitive appraisal theory of emotion. Although the name sounds technical, the idea is quite simple. So, Lazarus suggested that our emotions are influenced not only by what happens to us, but how we evaluate and interpret what has happened. So, in other words, before we experience an emotion, our brain quickly asks questions like, what does this situation mean? Is this dangerous? Can I handle it? What might happen next? And it also might depend on how we are raised and how we have been brought up and the similar situations in how we react and respond. So, based on these evaluations, our emotional response begins. So, imagine, let's look at another example where we imagine messaging to a friend. Several hours pass and they don't reply. Different people may interpret the same situation in different way. Some might think they're probably busy, and the other person might think, oh, they hate me. They might be ignoring me or like purposefully because they don't like me. Okay, this is how two different people, interprets the same situation. So what changes is the interpretations, and the interpretation influences the emotions that follows. So this is why emotional regulations is not only about managing emotions, it is about becoming aware of the thoughts that influence those emotions. So another psychologist is Dr. Aaron Beck, the founder of cognitive therapy, where Dr. Beck found that our minds often produce what he called automatic thoughts. These are thoughts that appear almost instantly, often without us even noticing them. Uh, so, for example, when I'm in a stage, or like When you're like normally sitting in a corner and you randomly think that people are always judging me, nobody understands me, I'm going to fail, I'm not good enough, all those feelings of insecurity and all those negative feelings are something, most of these thoughts feel very real. But it's important to remember that these thoughts are not always facts. We might be interpreting or assuming everything differently than what they actually are. They're mostly always predictions, right? So sometimes they are influenced by past experience rather than the present situations. As psychologists, counselors, parents, or educators, this is important distinction. This is an important distinction to understand. When we accept every thought as absolute truth or emotion, our emotion becomes very intense. When we pause, examine our thoughts, and we create an opportunity to respond more calmly, that's when we are able to understand our emotions better. So, whenever I feel misunderstood or hurt, I often assume that people no longer cared about me. So, looking back, I realized that I rarely checked with my assumptions if they were actually true. So, I reacted to my interpretations of the situations rather than the situation itself. Learning about cognitive appraisal helps us recognize this pattern. So it taught me to pause and ask myself a simple question. Is there another possible explanation? Could they be busy? That is one to the other example I mentioned earlier. Rather than going strictly to the negative one at first itself. Uh, Now I want to be clear about something. Yeah. So our emotions are totally valid. They tell us that something feels important. However, the emotion itself does not always tell us whether our interpretation is completely accurate. That is why emotional awareness is so valuable. So automatically, so awareness gives us an opportunity to become curious instead of reacting automatically. Okay. So another researcher whose work helps us understand this process is Dr. Daniel Kahneman, who described two ways our mind processes information. He referred to as system one and system two thinking. So system one is fast, automatic, and intuitive. Okay, so it helps us react quickly. And system two is slower, more deliberate, and analytical. So it helps us think carefully before making decisions. During emotional hijacking, our fast thinking often responds fast first. So our slower thinking needs a little more time. This is one reason why taking a brief pause before reacting can actually make a significant difference in how we respond to the situation. So even a few seconds can give our thinking brain an opportunity to become more involved. Before we move on, I'd like you all to reflect on one question. It's about a recent situation that made you think about a recent situation that made you feel upset. Now ask yourself, what actually happened? How did I interpret the situation? And could there have been another possible explanation? You don't have to answer these questions now. You could just think about it. The purpose of this exercise was to simply help us become more aware of the connection between our thoughts and our emotions. That awareness is one of the first steps towards emotional regulation. Now that we've understood how thoughts shape our emotional responses, Our next question is equally important. Once we recognize that we're becoming emotionally overwhelmed, what can we actually do about it is the next question, right? How can we cope with it, or how can we manage it properly and effectively? So, how do we actually regulate our emotions? So, can we actually train ourselves to respond differently? Is the question we need to ask ourselves. The answer is always yes, because emotional regulation is not something a few people are born with. It's a skill. It's a skill like communication, leadership, or public speaking. It's a skill that you develop with proper practice. So let's look at some of the practical strategies that is supported by psychological research. So strategy one is pausing before you react. So the this is where when you are emotionally overwhelmed, your our first reaction is often immediate. It's often to argue or often to defend ourselves. Or we either want to walk away. Instead of reacting immediately, give yourself a short pause. Sometimes just taking one slow breath, waiting for 30 seconds or even less than that can make a difference. Why does this help is another question. So, because it gives the thinking part of the brain to become more involved. And rather than responding or reacting very quickly, it gives us time to analyze our emotions. So, this is a very effective way in managing our emotions. So, another strategy is naming the emotion. So, instead of saying, I'm fine, ask yourself, what am I actually feeling right now? If I'm feeling angry or if I'm feeling disappointed, ask yourself, don't say I'm angry or I'm disappointed. Say I feel disappointed or I feel angry. Keep it separate from your being. Keep the emotion separate so that there's a specific distance from the emotion and you as a person. So we do not need to make all these emotions and all these negative emotions our own, a part of our personality. So, so labeling, this process is known as labeling. This can reduce the intensity and help us regulate these emotions more effectively. So, so the next strategy is questioning your thoughts. So question your thoughts. It's was discussed by Richard and Aaron Beck, as I mentioned earlier. Both highlighted the importance on how we interpret situations. So when strong emotions appear, ask yourself, what am I thinking right now? Do I have evidence for this thought? Could there be another explanation? For example, they ignored, as I mentioned earlier, they ignored me because they don't like me. Perhaps they're busy is another possibility for the same situation, right? So they this doesn't mean we ignore reality. It simply means we avoid jumping to conclusions without enough information. And let's move on to the next strategy, which is breathe slowly and deeply. So when we're stressed, our breathing becomes very fast and shallow. Our body interprets this as a sign of danger, that the sign of danger is still present. So, like pausing, taking a deep breath is very effective in that sense. So, slowly breathing sends a different message than fast breathing does. So, it tells us the body that the immediate threat has passed. A simple technique, one simple technique is box breathing, where you breathe for 4 seconds, hold your breath for 4 seconds and breathe out for 4 seconds. Pause for 4 seconds and repeat it 4 to 5 times. That's what we do, like when you're really stressed or anxious, or before you have to go on stage or something like that. In those cases, this is very effective. So, and another strategy is focusing on your values. Sometimes our emotions tells us what feels good at the moment. Our values reminds us what matters in our long term. So, when you're emotionally overwhelmed, ask yourself, what kind of person do I want to be in the situation? Do I want to be respectful? Do I want to respond respectfully? Do I want to be honest? Sometimes people mistake honesty and being brutally honest as a good thing, and it could hurt people. And being honest is a good thing, but at the same time, you have to say it in a specific way that it doesn't hurt the person sitting opposite you. So, do I want to be a patient, a kind, or a courageous person? For me, this became an important turning point. So, there was a time when fear stopped me from applying to opportunities because I didn't feel ready, and I kept waiting to be more well prepared or to feel more confident. Eventually, I realized something, okay? The confidence doesn't always come before action. Very often, confidence develops before we take action. So instead of asking, do I feel ready? I started asking, will I regret not trying? So that became an instant shift for me to actually take an action towards my goals. And now that even when I'm not ready, I'm taking action, so I'm not missing out on an opportunity. At least I tried. So it's better to try and fail than to not try at all, right? So emotional regulation is these are the few strategies where you can regulate your emotions effectively on how you can do it. So emotional regulation is not emotional suppression. Sometimes people think emotional regulation is hiding your emotions, but it's not. It's not pretending to be happy when you're struggling. It's not ignoring sadness. It's not suppressing anger or anything like that. It's actually healthy emotional regulation means recognizing your emotions, understanding them, expressing them appropriately, and choosing behaviors that support your long-term well-being. In other words, we are not trying to improve or we're not trying to remove emotions entirely. We are learning how to respond to them effectively. So, one daily exercise we can all do simply is that you can ask yourself these three questions when you're in a difficult situations. What am I feeling? What might be causing this feeling? What is the healthiest response I can choose right now? So these three questions takes less than 1 minute. So it's best to like be more emotionally regulated than to be impulsive in your reactions. So this is like any other skill like communication or public speaking. This is a very important skill that you can uh, inculcate in your daily life because it helps improve relationships with people. So some days we'll respond well, other days we won't. That's completely normal. The goal is not perfection. The goal is progress. That's what we should like try to remind ourselves. Uh, every time we choose a healthier response, we are strengthening new habits. So, and that in turn does make or produce more neurons in our brain, which in turn increases our IQ. And this, in turn, also increases our emotional quotient, where we emotionally grow as beings. Mm. So, another question you all might have thought about is, can people actually really change after a certain point of time? People say that, like after adulthood, your character and your behavior usually is very strict, that it might not be able to, you might not be able to change it after a while. So it's better to change it in your teenagers. So this is what a lot of people struggle with. So to be honest, if someone has struggled with anger for years, can they learn to respond differently? If someone is a very overthinking person, can they become emotionally stronger? Are some of the questions you might have thought about. So the answer to this, according to psychology and neuroscience, is yes. So, one of the most exciting discoveries of neuroscience is something called neuroplasticity, where it refers to the brain's ability to adapt and form new neural connections throughout our lives. So, for many years, scientists believed that our adult brain was fixed, as I mentioned earlier, and could not change very much. Today, research tells us something very different. Every time we learn a new skill, every time we practice a healthier habit, and every time we pause before reacting, our brain is strengthening new pathways. In simple words, the more we practice healthy emotional habits, the easier those habits become over time. So this doesn't mean it can change overnight. Like any skill, it takes patience and consistency, but it is possible. This is one of the most hopeful messages that most psychologists gives us, that uh, change happens within time and behavioral therapy can actually work. So now that we have gone through what emotional hijacking is and the types of responses and the strategies to cope with it and regulate our emotions effectively, uh, if you have to understand that emotions are not the problem, our emotions are important, and they help us recognize danger, they help us build relationships, they help us experience love, joy, empathy, and compassion. The goal is not to eliminate emotions. The goal is to understand them and respond to them in healthy ways. So, I'd like to leave you with something I personally remind myself. There was a time when I believed I had to wait until I felt confident enough to take action. I thought I needed to completely be prepared before stepping outside my comfort zone. So over time, I realized that confidence comes after action and not before it. And this lesson changes the way you approach challenges. So today, I personally still experience fear. I experience disappointment, anger, anxiousness, stress, and everything like any other human being. But the awareness gives me an opportunity to choose my response more carefully. And I believe that this is something all of us can learn. Whether you're a psychologist supporting clients, a parent guiding your children, a student preparing for your future, or simply someone trying to be a better version of yourself, emotional regulation is a skill worth developing. So, so let's reflect on these questions and ask ourselves questions to understand and regulate our emotions much more better. And this is the end of today's session. If there's any questions or doubts you have, you may ask during this.
Thank you very much, Miss Irene Amal Jose, for an excellent session on emotional hijacking. Your insightful presentation, it really helped us better understand the impact of emotions on our thoughts and behavior. And you also equipped us with practical ways to respond more mindfully. We truly appreciate your time and enthusiasm and valuable insights. It's actually refreshing to see that as a psychology student, you're actually how much you're applying this psychology to your personal life, because you've shared several of your personal experiences as well. So congratulations, you did the session really well. Your energy and your pleasant nature, that also added to the session. So I will open the session, open the platform to everyone so that they can give you feedback or have any interactions as well. Okay?
Okay. Irene ji, this is Dr. Venugopal. I joined from USA. Yesterday, Dr. Rajendran was there when I hosted a webinar. The topic was first thoughts, second thoughts, third thoughts. And when you mentioned about the thought, the first thoughts are not actually thoughts. They are just the emotional hijack, and immediately after the emotional hijack, the reactions, anger, anxiety, fear, whatever, and we mislabel that as first thought. And that is where one should not react, one should respond. And that respond to that one, you need thinking skills. I want to underline these two words, thinking skills. How many people have the thinking skills? Very, very few. And when you don't have thinking skills, even if you pause for 1 minute or 1 hour, that reaction is going to be same. If you know how to think, then only you will know how to respond. I'm sure that Susan G is nodding her head, so she is agreeing with my comment. And first thoughts, that is why you know what happened when the youngsters, when they fail the NEET examination, they commit suicide.
Yes, sir.
That
Very
is a reaction. That on whatever, that on emotional hijack, nothing else. And
exactly.
recently, when the ED came to interrogate a person, former chief minister's daughter, a crowd gathered around that one. They went violent. They even pelted and they assaulted, attacked the ED officials. That's all because of emotional hijack. And it is happened before, it is happening, it will happen again. So for that one, the only way to deal with that one is parenting. And
Yes,
unfortunately,
very
many
true.
parents, they don't know how to control their emotions. Many parents are also, they react. They immediately shout at the children if they do something wrong, and they trigger the chain reaction. So emotional regulation, it sounds good when you give a talk, but in reality, thinking skills. And Dr. Rajendran will vouch. Yesterday, he listened to my talk. And if you want to, then you can go online, the YouTube, it is there. So that is what it is. ഇവിടെ അതൊന്നും ചെയ്യാതെ, without even, the parents, they don't know. And the children, they imitate. So that's what is happening. Look at a politician. They are very good at this one. They may pretend that they don't have control over the emotions. They pretend. They are very good at pretending. It neat if a child that is fails, within next year, you can take that exam again. But what about a politician, MLA, MP, loses? You'll have to wait for 5 years. Have you ever seen any politician committing suicide because they lost? So they know how to control their emotions. So I am stopping this one. If you are interested, go and watch my YouTube video. It is 1 hour long. You'll be able to
Yes,
get more
sir. I'll make sure
concrete
I watch
ideas.
it. I'm
Pardon?
happy to hear that you actually listen to my webinar.
Because this is my approach is always, I'm always an eternal student mindset. I have a student mindset.
Yeah,
I
that's
always
very good.
listen to even a children also. If a teenager gives a talk, I won't let my ego come in the way. Because maybe that person may be able to share something which I don't know. And I know that
We
you
can
have done
always
a lot
learn
of,
from everyone.
and you have done a lot of homework, Irene G. So the contents of your talk were really good.
Thank
Contents
you.
were really good. And the command over the language is also really good.
Thank you.
So those are all the plus points. But the most important thing is thinking skill. Without that one, the emotional
Yes,
hijack
sir.
will continue. Emotional
I think a
hijack, you
lot
can
of
never stop.
I think a lot of people my age react most of the time, and it also depends on how they were brought up, and not just people my age, even middle-aged and old people. It always depends on how you were brought up and how you were raised and how you have, even if you were not raised properly, you can always choose to raise yourself better, to become a better person, right? So,
Irene
and
G,
that, I think that's what matters.
Irene G,
Yes,
recently
sir.
one bishop, Kerala one bishop, and some doctors, because of emotional hijack, digital arrest, they became victims and they lost lakhs of rupees.
Mm.
They didn't even think, they reacted immediately. They panicked. I don't know whether you are aware of the digital arrest, that scam. And a
I wasn't
bishop,
actually. No.
right, bishop, go ahead and find that one. I don't know whether Susan G is aware of those instances. So that is happening. Even doctors were also victims because of emotional hijack. They don't pause and think. They immediately react, panic. They push the panic button. So that is it. I learned how to think by reading one book for the information of the audience. There's an excellent book called Whole Brain Thinking Skills.
Oh,
That will
very
give
good.
you a lot of information about how to use your left brain, how to use right brain. I read that one 40 years back. It is only some 300 or 350 pages. You can finish that one if you read every day some 10 pages in 30 or 35 days. And not reading is not enough. Read, apply. So it made a big change in my life. When I was faced, because I had to face a lot of harassment, retaliation, bullying here in America because of the racial discrimination is there. That's a reality, ugly reality. And some of my colleagues, they didn't know how to. They immediately resigned and ran away. Immediate reaction was they couldn't take it. I didn't. I didn't run away. I confronted them because of my thinking skills. Any allegation, false allegation, I questioned. Okay, could you please give me evidence? Ask for the evidence. Yeah, you have made these allegations. I would like to take a look at the evidence, facts and evidence. They didn't have any facts or evidence. Then, so that is how I dealt with them because of thinking skills. That book, Whole Brain Thinking Skills, that one worth buying and reading. And especially Irene G, that will help you a lot because you are a very good, what you call, a teacher or a trainer based on my one. This one is enough. നമ്മൾ ചോറ് വന്നിട്ട് എല്ലാതും വെന്തോ നോക്കത്തില്ല അല്ലേ? ഒരെണ്ണം എടുക്കുമ്പോൾ തന്നെ അറിയാം കംപ്ലീറ്റ് വെന്തോ എന്നുള്ളത്. ദി സെയിം വേ this talk itself is enough to show that is you know, and you take all your assignments with commitment. Thank you.
Thank you,
Wish you all the
sir.
best.
I
Thank-
appreciate your feedback.
Thank you very much, Doctor, for
I've
all
noted
the
the
add-ons
books
as
down.
well. Yes. Thank you. Anyone else?
Rinji, I first appreciate your courage
Thank you, sir.
to present such a paper, such a difficult subject. See, you explained very you elaborated the subject. But see, as he is experienced, this Venugopal ji is experienced, he expressed the hijacking in two or three sentences. Okay, you can follow him. You are only a student, but you have enough courage to present such a difficult page. I appreciate your courage, and you are well prepared, and heartfelt congratulations in presenting such a paper. We expect more subjects from you. I appreciate Susan Madam for introducing her. And who invited Irene ji?
Susan ma'am
madam?
did.
I did.
Yes.
I found
Thank you.
I found the
Thank you,
gem in
Susan.
her. I found the gem in her. Thank God.
Thank you. Heartfelt congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
See, more and more people, more and more efficient hands you can bring to the Wimble platform.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Really,
I once
thank you.
more appreciate the courage of Irene, Irene ji. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Heartfelt
Doctor.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, Rajendran ji, because you are repeatedly used the word courage. And if you have confidence, then you will get courage. If you don't have confidence,
Yes.
then you won't get the courage.
Correct.
And she has that confidence. It has nothing to do with just courage. That confidence that is doing the homework and the confidence in your ability to speak in English. So obviously, it is there. Courage is there. You don't have to go to a medical store and buy a capsule of courage.
Yes, sir. I also appreciate you in attending almost all the webinars when you are getting time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Good evening. Good evening, Miss Irene.
Good evening, ma'am.
Yes, your presentation was excellent.
Thank
Okay.
you, ma'am.
And then you did very well to presented about that emotional hijacking. That you covered all the points pointed out it. Even
Thank
that
you.
that also included that neuroplasticity, that also very important in the parts of the brain, that you describe very details about the path, about that pathway. So that neuroplasticity will come new skills joined to new languages, that I very much interested to that discussion, and I appreciate your confidence. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else?
One more thing I would like to add. I would like to say it in Malayalam because I think that the audience, they can understand Malayalam. പണ്ട് സൂസൻ ജിക്ക് അത്രയും ഇത് കണ്ടിട്ടുണ്ടെന്ന് അറിഞ്ഞൂടാ. പണ്ട് വെറ്റില മുറുക്കുന്ന ശീലം ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു.
Yes.
വെറ്റില.
കണ്ടിട്ടുണ്ട്.
ആ വെറ്റിലയിൽ ചുണ്ണാമ്പെടുത്ത് തടവുന്ന ഒരു പരിപാടിയുണ്ട്.
Yes.
So some elders, when you ask some questions or something which is embarrassing, the emotional hijack happens to them. Then they, to buy time, അവരപ്പത്തന്നെ പതുക്കെ ആ വെറ്റില ചെല്ലാൻ തുറക്കും. എന്നിട്ട് ഒരു തിങ്ക് ചെയ്യാനായിട്ടാണ്, ടു കാം ഡൗൺ, പാസ്, ദാറ്റ് പാസിന് വേണ്ടിയിട്ടാണ്.
Yes.
അപ്പം ഒരു ആക്ടിവിറ്റി, ദേ ആർ ഡൂയിങ് സംതിങ്. എന്നിട്ട് ആ വെറ്റില എടുത്തിട്ട് പതുക്കെ ചുണ്ണാമ്പെടുത്ത് ഇങ്ങനെയൊക്കെ പതുക്കെ തടവി, ദേ ആർ തിങ്കിങ് വാട്ട് ടു സേ ഇൻസ്റ്റെഡ് ഓഫ് റിയാക്ടിങ്, ഹൗ ടു റെസ്പോണ്ട്. അത് പണ്ട് നടന്നിട്ടുള്ളതാണ്. ദെൻ ഒരു 40 years back, when I was in Trivandrum, I met a retired executive from Hindustan Lever Company on KPV Menon. He is no more. And when I talked to him, from him I learned. And they used to have some kind of a company meeting. And then if somebody says something which is irritating or is anger provoking, what he used to do was, just excuse me, he would say, excuse me, and he will go to the restroom. Excuse me, go to the restroom to buy time. And he would splash cold water on his face so that when he comes back, he is calmed down, not taking that box breathing. ബോക്സ് ബ്രീത്തിങ് എല്ലാം പറയുമ്പോൾ കേൾക്കാൻ കൊള്ളാം, പക്ഷെ ആ സമയത്ത് അവിടെ നിന്ന് പിന്നെ ഇത് കൗണ്ട് ചെയ്തുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കും. 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 ബോക്സ്ഡ് ബ്രീത്തിങ്. ബട്ട് ഇത് അവിടെ ചെന്ന് വെള്ളമെല്ലാം അടിച്ചിട്ട് ഇറ്റ് മേ ടേക്ക് എ കപ്പിൾ ഓഫ് മിനിറ്റ്സ്. ബൈ ദെൻ, യെസ്, I know I won't be reacting. So these are all the certain tactics the elders they use. വെറ്റില, ഇന്നിപ്പം വെറ്റില ഇല്ല, അതാണ് വെറ്റില ആരും ഉപയോഗിക്കാറില്ല. Then comes, ഇപ്പോഴും റെസ്റ്റ് റൂം ഉണ്ടെന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ ഒന്ന് എക്സ്ക്യൂസ് മീ, ജസ്റ്റ് ടേക്ക് exit and come back after 1 or 2 minutes. That is what the best approach. And you must have seen in Tamil Nadu, many of you don't know, I'm sure that most of you may not even have heard about Kamaraj Nadar. He was a he was awarded Bharat Ratna. He was the chief minister. A man, formal education, 7th grade. Lot of wisdom. The Tamil Nadu, many things he brought in. And when he was confronted, whenever he got confronted by either the media or somebody else, or some request or something like that, his response used to be, Agattum Parkalam. In Tamil, Agattum Parkalam, okay, let me think about it. It is not that I'm not going to say immediately yes or no. The same thing, our former Chief Minister A.K. Antony. A.K. Antony, after any incident, anything, when a Chief Minister, immediately the media will go, സാർ ഇതിനെക്കുറിച്ച് എന്താണ് പറയാനുള്ളത്, താങ്കൾക്ക് എന്ത് പറയാനുണ്ട്. ഓക്കെ, ഹിസ് റെസ്പോൺസ് യൂസ് ടു ബി, ഇപ്പോൾ ഞാൻ പ്രതികരിക്കുന്നില്ല. ഓക്കെ, ദാറ്റ് മീൻസ് റിയാക്ഷൻ. പുള്ളിയുടെ സ്റ്റാൻഡേർഡ് റെസ്പോൺസ് ആണ്, ഇപ്പോൾ ഞാൻ പ്രതികരിക്കുന്നില്ല. സേഫ്. Because immediate reaction, the so-called first thought, which is not a first thought, then that can land you in trouble. A reaction. So A.K. Antony was smart. ഇപ്പോൾ ഞാൻ പ്രതികരിക്കുന്നില്ല. Those are all the ways to handle such situations. Emotional hijack. If you want to successfully come out of that emotional hijack, this is what you can do. Thank you.
Yes, different strategies that our elders used to use. I remember my grandmother used to have that. Vetta, the തൂക്കുന്നതൊക്കെ. Yeah, I remember those incidents. But anyway, if I think we have finished with the feedback. Anyone else?
Hi, ma'am.
Yes, hi.
Hi to all. And today's sessions, Susan ma'am, first of all, thank you for for opportunity to feedback sessions. First feedback, it's my Today's session is very informative and overall it was very engaging section. I found very easy to understand, explain brain system and simple way also described how to brain work during strong emotion, learned amygdala reaction quickly. Almost all topic cover in these sessions. It was thank you for your effort, ma'am, and I wish you all the best for your future presentation. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
ma'am.
Sushi. Yeah, thank you, Sushi. Anyone else?
നേരത്തെ പറഞ്ഞു ഇവരെ കൊണ്ടുവന്ന് ചോദിച്ചു സൂസൻ ജി അടുത്ത് നിങ്ങൾ
Yes.
ആര് കൊണ്ടുവന്നു? സൂസൻ ജി പറഞ്ഞു ഞാൻ തന്നെ കൊണ്ടുവന്നു. സൂസൻ ജിയുടെ പേര് തന്നെ വാളക്കുഴിയാണ്. ആ കുഴിക്കകത്ത് എവിടെയെല്ലാം ഉണ്ട്, ആരൊക്കെ ഉണ്ടെന്ന് നമുക്ക് ഒരു പിടിയില്ല. ആ കുഴിക്കകത്ത് വാളക്കുഴി, ആ കുഴിക്കകത്തിരുന്ന് ഇങ്ങനെ ഓരോന്നായിട്ട് കൊണ്ടുവരും അവര് കേട്ടോ.
Anyway, we are getting good gems, so that's very good. I'm really happy. So once if everybody is finished with the feedback, we will move on. I would like to remind everybody that we are starting our next batch of our spoken English batch that will be starting on July 27th. The poster is out already, so if you're interested, please do contact us. And once again, I thank Irene for a super session, and we really do congratulate you, and we support you in all your efforts, and we wish you all the very best. You're not only pretty good in academics, but you're also very good in various community work and palliative care and sustainability, all these things. So that is very commendable. So our thoughts and prayers and blessings are upon you. You will do very well in future, and we look forward to having you again on this platform down the road with another topic. So thank you so much. All our best wishes are
Thank you
upon
so
you.
much, ma'am.
Yes.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity, and it's really commendable on how you have provided this platform for a lot of people.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. All right, so we'll wind up the session. We'll see you next week. That is same day, same time next week. We'll see you again for another session with another presenter. So until then, we say good night to each and every one of you. Thank you very much for your patient listening and also your active participation and your feedback and your add-ons. It's well appreciated. Thank you once again and good night. Shall we wind up?
Okay, ma'am. Good night.
Good night. Good night.
Good night, ma'am.
Good night.
Right.
Good night.